Welcome back to 4th and 3 Dudes. This is episode 14.2. I'll explain that a little bit in a minute. But it's only two of the three dudes today. The other one is off playing golf. Unfortunately, we couldn't reschedule because we'd already recorded earlier this week, and let's just say there were some technical difficulties. But I'm Chris Nama coming to you from here in Peachtree Corners, Georgia, trying to get this out before the big games of the weekend start. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am Cord, 3-year award-winning podcaster. Trophy.
I'm 3-year Letterman, but an award-winning podcaster.
Yeah.
We actually recorded on Monday night while Cord was traveling up to Indiana in his car. We were trying to do it over our normal recording methods wouldn't work. Tried it over FaceTime, but apparently you got to go jump through a few more hoops than we realized to get the audio recorded. So we have a 40-minute video that just has talking heads. So that's not really good to be able to give any information out. But
wait till the aliens intercept that. They won't come here for sure.
They think a bunch of mutes. So they think we can communicate versus with telepathy or something.
That planet.
All right. Well, this morning I'm just drinking regular coffee in my game day coffee mug that Katie made for me years ago. But
I'm drinking in a little demi cup, fancy boy.
Nice. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the games from last week. Why don't you go ahead and start us off with how those Beavers did?
Oh, it was glorious. It's funny. We already went over this, but Beavers win the Pac-12 championship or the Pac-2 championship.
Pac-2.
Everett Hayes kicked a 55-yard field goal with 20 seconds left to win. The entire stadium rushed the field, and we were barely able to cover the mascot in the middle of the field. No. More than that, but not. We didn't cover the whole field. But yeah, I don't know where this Beaver team came from. They started out 4-1 and then lost 5 in a row, and it was a real low point. I mean, gosh, people were on Twitter were going, talking about baseball. Mm-hmm. But somehow they pulled it out against Washington State. And Washington State, they were 8-2. They had a good team. Their quarterback Mateer, he was in the talk for the Heisman, way back when. He runs 75 yards a game and passes for 250, 270. So Beavers were able to keep up with him head for head, point for point.
Yep.
Until I think early in the fourth quarter, we got the ball and we were going to go ahead and score again and take the lead again. But we threw a pick 6, and so we were down by 7 at the bottom of the fourth, and we marched down and tied it up. They got the ball. They fumbled on the 50. We went a few yards, kicked a field goal, won.
Nice.
So it was exciting because usually when we get close like that, something happens. We drop a ball, and it's just pack it in. We're done.
Right.
But that people are calling this the Pac-2 championship or the Left for Dead Bowl or the Nobody Watches Bowl. But this is like football's, I think, newest rivalry based on what happened last year between just Washington State and Oregon State, and it's kind of like you're playing against your brother, going through the same situation that they kind of did with us in the Pac-12 last year. So, but it's kind of different. It's not like Oregon where I wish nothing but death and destruction for them.
Right.
I will root for Wazoo for any game, any team, except when they play the Beavers. So it's kind of a different feeling. Unlike Bernie, who says he hates the Gators and then roots for them when they play Ole Miss. So that's kind of weird. You might want to take away his UGA card for that one.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely did that. I guess that was more, again, to give Georgia a better chance to get into the playoffs. But
Irrelevant.
It wasn't get nothing personal for you, I'm sure. But anyway, yeah, no, that was definitely a great win for the Beavers and puts them in position where this weekend is. Actually, today makes it a bowl eligibility thing that they now have back on the table. So tough game, but
4 minutes.
Yep, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But let's go ahead and get to the Georgia game. I actually had the privilege of traveling up and watching that game in person. First game that I've seen in a couple of years in Sanford Stadium. Got up there, had seats in the Sky Club, which was really cool. So Gabby and I went up there, watched the game, had a great tailgate, ran into Robert Wolf. Hadn't seen him in years. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, great weather. But then the football game started. We kicked off to UMass, and they marched right down the field on us. But which was a little bit.
At least Georgia's consistent.
Yeah. Hey. Well, I mean, again, the slow start has normally happened on the offensive side, not the defensive side. That was the part that was a little more unusual. I mean, thankfully, the big thing about it was the Georgia offense was going right from the beginning. I mean, I think we scored touchdowns on our first 4 possessions. Carson Beck was on. Receivers were doing a good job catching the ball. I think we spread it around to 12 different receivers over the course of the game, and we won 59-21. All those things
stepped up.
Yeah, he did. We finally had a 100-yard rusher in the game. The offensive line hasn't given up a sack in 2 weeks. Knock on wood. But I think it's one of the first times we've had the same offensive line for 2 weeks in a row, too. I mean, they've settled in some of the injuries. I mean, Ratledge finally seems to be back. Freeling's doing a great job when he started filling in at left tackle for Green after he got hurt and had such a poor performance also, which I think he was actually more hurt than anybody knew in that Ole Miss game. But yeah, I mean, it was the defense starting slow and not having an answer and getting our defensive line getting blown off the ball by UMass's offensive line was the most concerning thing, especially when you're facing the team we are this week. So they did have a coaching change in the middle of the week. They did switch up their offensive system, but you still think our athletes are good enough that that's not going to happen quite the way it did. But they didn't. But most of their damage was in the running game. I mean, they ran for, I think I said, 200. Yeah, 220 yards against 226 yards, including the sack yardage against Georgia.
Yeah, that's the defensive line's fault for letting that get through.
Yeah, so hopefully we got a lot more on tape with Georgia Tech, so they'll be able to shore that stuff up and be a little more prepared for Georgia Tech's running.
Do you think that's not having the tape to prepare, or is that personnel?
I mean, again, I think we're mostly healthy on the defensive line now, which was the, again, more concerning part. It could also be, I mean, regardless of what coaches everybody says about not overlooking somebody like UMass, especially, I mean, in a situation where you're looking forward to Georgia Tech. If you win that game, you pretty much think you're in the college football playoff, because all this, of course, was happening before all the rest of the chaos that happened last weekend. I mean, but you think you're good enough, even if it isn't on tape, you would have made the adjustments and you still wouldn't get knocked off the ball like that. So
right.
But anyway, I mean, they righted the ship. They only gave up the 1 touchdown in the second half when Dan Jackson and somebody else, nobody could decide who was actually going to tackle the guy that caught the pass, but instead they neither one did. Neither one tackled him. It reminded me of that Ryan Williams catch at the end of the Alabama game, unfortunately. But that they had that
got a good D when they're saying, no, after you. You tackle him. I don't need the tackle.
Because that touchdown was the 75-yard touchdown pass to start off the second half. I mean, Gabby and I were trying to decide whether or not we need to leave the stadium and get back here, and so I could get in my chair in the basement and call y'all up and get you over the house. But anyway, again, that was the only big play thing we gave up in the second half. But again, we're just hoping that the defense starts off on a stronger foot this week. So, but anyway, other than that, the other chaos from this past weekend, goodness
gracious, all over the place.
It was. So that Ole Miss game.
Oh, they were stunned. Lane Kiffin forgot to pack the squirrel.
Yes, I think that was it.
Yeah, it was a slow first half, and they were slugging it out. Ole Miss, they got into the red zone twice and turned it over on downs by 4th and short. They're running that refrigerator Peggy in the background, the 350-pound tackle Wildcat, and he's trying to go around the end or off tackle. You need a yard. You go between the guard and the center, or the center and the guard. You put 350 pounds on a 240-pound linebacker, you're going to get 3 feet.
Yeah.
And we missed a field goal, or they missed a field goal in the first half. So, gosh, 7 + 7 + 3, what's that, 30?
Yeah.
That could have been an easy win. And shoot, almost killed their, pretty much killed their football playoff hopes. They were in it. So, but with 3 losses, they're going to have a lot more losses ahead of them. They're 16th ahead of them.
Yeah.
But and then Trey Harris got hurt. I mean, he was catching everything in the first half and got hurt in the second quarter, I think. Strained his groin with a weird type of landing, which it just didn't look natural. And it's almost like he was stretching, but he hit that at full speed. So he's out. And a lot of drop balls after that. And a lot of, it seemed like miscommunication between Jackson Dart and the receivers, where he was throwing to where he thought they should be, and they were running a different route. And I think that's what led to a couple of the picks at the end there, where it looks like the only receivers in the area were Florida defenders.
Right.
And Jackson was thrown to the space where he thought. So frustrating for Ole Miss and for their fans. I think, that was talk about. I think I worried about rat poison about Lane talking about that, but I guess the good thing is I don't think Lane Kiffin's going to be taking the Florida job if it comes open after his last 2 trips down there to the swamp.
Yeah, I don't think that job's coming open. I mean, I think Napier's pretty much saved his job the way he's done. I mean, they keep giving him the vote of confidence, but one of the other things, though, that people had talked about that game is Kiffin resorted back to the way he had been coaching, and instead of like in the Georgia game, you take the points when you're in position. You have the things where you keep going for it on 4th down when it's time you could have put points up on the board and stuff like that. Yeah,
he's big on analytics, and I don't know if he goes against it, but, if your kid missed the field goal, in the first half and you're 4th and 1 on the 9 and you can't put Florida away, you don't deserve to win. To get 1 yard?
Yeah. Then the other games, I mean, Alabama ran into a buzzsaw against Oklahoma. I mean, again, one of the funniest things I saw on TikTok was these guys who supposedly write the script for the weekend of football, and when they talked about the Alabama-Oklahoma game, they said, let's go ahead and just switch the playing abilities of the 2 quarterbacks. and that is sure what it seemed happened, because Milroe could not do anything right, and Jackson Arnold became one of the best running quarterbacks in the freaking country.
I was watching Milroe's runs. It was just his runs, and half of them were for losses, it seemed. He had one that was like for 11 yards, and that was it.
Yeah.
It's like his feet were stuck in cement or quicksand or something. He would shift and he'd slip, or they'd catch him. And Oklahoma, man, they were in the backfield giving him some hard time.
Yeah, they were definitely keeping the pressure on him for sure. And then Milroe he kept turning the ball over. Right. I mean, there were several of those throws he was trying to throw out wide. I mean, 2 of them one of them was a pick 6, and where Milroe did not make a very good attempt to try to tackle anybody. But and the other one, I mean, was I don't know if the cornerback just was really that prepared, but he stepped right in front of the screen pass and caught it too. So, I mean, there were a lot of turnovers, but just Oklahoma came ready to play in that game, and it was one of those things where Alabama has obviously had more trouble on the road. I think that's where they've lost all their games. So I know they're going to be happy to be playing the Iron Bowl at home tomorrow night. But yeah, then of course the other big game, speaking of Iron Bowl, was Auburn versus Texas A&M. I mean, oh my goodness, Auburn handed them their 3rd loss. Auburn tried to Auburn the game to the best of their abilities, because
I remember you texting like, well, Auburn's exploding or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Auburn's imploding. I mean, because they had that 21-0 lead, and then here comes Texas A&M.
Here we go.
Kept chipping away. They got there, and then they got into overtime, and they traded touchdowns, then they traded field goals. But Auburn was able in the 4th overtime to convert their 2-point conversion first, and luckily the Texas A&M guy dropped his. He looked like it was a tough catch, but it looked like he could have had it, but he couldn't haul it in, and Auburn squeaks out with a victory.
Woo.
I know. So, and of course, those were the only 3 things that could have happened to make it so we didn't have to go to page 19 of the SEC tiebreaker rules to figure out who's going to be playing the SEC championship game. Those things happened and actually made it so Georgia was the only clear-cut team in the SEC championship game on December 4th or December 7th. And then the second one goes down to the winner of the Texas A&M game.
See, and that's what I like about college football versus NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, it's just, you got such different levels of talent and players on each team. And, that can swing, from a favored game to, totally topsy-turvy upside down. I mean, look at Air Force and Oregon State, was minus 14 and it flipped 28-0. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, not that that was a good example, but
Yeah.
Auburn, Alabama, and we'll see what happens this week.
Yep. So I guess to wrap up last week, we need to talk about our locks of the week. Don't have Bernie here to direct that, but I guess
I'll tell you, we both choked.
that's what we all did.
We were on the Kiffin train, the Lane train.
Yep. So y'all
That
both
didn't
had
work out.
Ole Miss, and then I took A&M. Of course, they had them by 2.5. I mean, goodness gracious, they could have just done it the first overtime. But
That's our first offer, isn't it?
I think it is. So thank you. That made you 10-2-1, and Bernie and I both 7-6 over or for this for our records for our locks of the week. So
Oh, you guys are bowl eligible, huh?
we're bowl eligible. We're all above 500. That's the good thing. So we're all above 500. But I'm not necessarily making a lot
there's
of money.
Still time.
The anti parlay would have definitely, or the anti our picks lock of the weeks would have been a good parlay last week.
Yeah, but last week was the weirdest week, I think.
Man, every week is weird. I mean, again, college football is drunk. There's any given day anybody's going to win this year. So
Right.
which is what makes it so interesting. So
That's what that ACC coach said.
yeah. But all right, so looking ahead to this week, we got games that are kicking off in 40 minutes. So we got to get this thing done. So, and one of the first one that kicks off is the Beavers versus Boise State. So what are you thinking in that game, man?
Boise State's favored by 17.5 right now. I think it was 18. It's going to be 25 degrees at kickoff and sunny. Noontime kickoff on Fox. Beavers are trying to become bowl eligible for the fourth time in a row. I think they're 5-6 right now. And Boise State, they are trying to solidify their place in the college football playoffs. So both teams, have something to shoot for. It looks like Oregon State, they're going to have their drop back passer, Go Branson, start, but then they have Gavari Johnson, the other QB that's more of a runner, on standby. So, like I said, it just depends. Boise State's tough. They've only lost one game this year. It was to Oregon by 3 points at Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they may not have the toughest schedule, compared to SEC or Big Ten teams, but if the Beavers show up, it could be a close one. So we'll just see if they can shut down our run game, and then Beavers are in trouble. If we can force their running back Genty to have a couple fumbles, then stop in the red zone. That, like I said, I'm hoping it's going to be like Washington State, Oregon State, where it was a shootout.
Right. I mean, yeah, you just never know because again, but it's in Boise, right?
It is.
Okay, so on the Smurf turf.
Yep.
So, but it should definitely. Hopefully it'll be a good game. But yeah, the cold weather. Y'all used to that as much as Boise State is?
We're a little closer to the coast. We don't have that high desert temperatures that they have, and it maybe snows in Corvallis once every other year, but Beavers are coming off that big win against Washington State for the championship, and Boise State only beat Wyoming by 3.
Yeah.
So hopefully the Beavers, they've been throwing their last 5 games just to keep everyone on their toes and become the underdogs and take the victory. We'll see.
Yep. And then Georgia's welcoming in the Georgia Tech, the Ramblin' Record Georgia Tech, to Sanford Stadium tonight at 7:30 p.m. for their kickoff. This is always a dangerous game with an in-state rivalry. Georgia Tech is working with a 2-quarterback system now, with Haynes King still being his throwing arm still being barely attached, so it seems, from the past few weeks. Don't know how much that has improved, but Philo is proven to be a really good freshman addition to their offensive attack. Hopefully, we'll be able to key on that 2-quarterback system and have a good idea what to do when each player's in there. But Philo this past week. I mean, he helped lead Georgia Tech to the victory, the Thursday night victory over NC State, and he did the last victory the last drive was mostly on his feet. So he's got a little more going on for him than Haynes King does right now. But Haynes King is just such a great leader on their team. And I mean, Georgia Tech is a solid team on offense. Defense is a little more suspect. So hopefully we'll get out to that fast start today offensively. And since we've had more tape on both of these guys, hopefully our defense will be a little bit more prepared, more ready to handle that attack from the very beginning of the game.
And that was my concern. You guys have a lot of tape on Tech, and but with performance of the D-line last week versus UMass, and then you had to prepare for two different styles of offense or two different quarterbacks. That could be tricky, but it's at home, it's at night, so there's definitely an advantage there. Students are out, correct?
They are. I mean, hopefully someone will come back early for this game, but
right.
We'll see. Especially for such a big football game and being under the lights and likely the last home game for the season, because assuming everything goes well and we get a bye in the first round of the playoffs. So
we should have had Miranda on again.
Oh, that's true. I wonder if he's heading up to that game.
All right, I'm going to fire our scheduler.
But so yeah, it's going to be a good game. I think it's the line now is, what is it, 19? What is the line?
It is 17 and a half. No.
I think it's 18 is what is showing on this. But anyway, I think Georgia's going to win. I don't know that they're going to cover.
They never cover.
No, I mean, they give us, Georgia Tech gave us fits last year. So I mean, again, I think we'll win.
It's hard for the rivalry week games because there's such an emotional content to all these games.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be cold too.
Yeah,
it's going to be in the 30s, I think, at kickoff. I know the low's supposed to be down or near freezing tonight, and the high is only going to be like 43 today. So it's going to be chilly for everybody out there tailgating and getting ready for that game. So, but anyway. Oh, and Bernie did want us to mention the fact that Georgia now being in the SEC championship game, so many of the Georgia fans were actually, if you watch the SEC shorts, just kind of gave the attitude of most Georgia fans. We were actually hoping to host the game for in the playoffs and not have to worry about playing the SEC championship game for fear of what happens if we lose that game. Bernie wants to let you all know that you're just pretend ACC fans. You always got to want Georgia's first. The main goal for every season, the first goal is to win the SEC championship.
Right, don't send us any hate mail. We'll post Bernie's address online after the show.
Yeah, but I mean, again, that's the only way you're guaranteed to get in there. Whether we're playing Texas A&M or Texas, I think we are prepared for both of them. So anyway, we got to get through this game, get this win tonight, and then we can move on from there. So there'll be plenty more to talk about that next week's show. So
for the playoffs, the favored team in these league conference playoffs that, assuming they're all going to get to the playoffs, what if they get blown out because of that game?
You talking about in the championship games?
Yeah, for Big 10, Big 12.
Right. I mean, I think it's going to depend. I mean, it's one of those where there's a lot of talk now, especially depending on what Clemson does against South Carolina. If South Carolina beats Clemson, then still gets to the ACC championship game. If they lose that, are they going to get in? Is the loser of the ACC championship going to get in?
What if Ohio State beats Oregon 70-0? Do you put Oregon in?
Oregon's going to be in because they have no losses. They're undefeated. That'll just be their first loss. They'll still be there. I mean, the biggest ones you're going to have the trouble with is going to be the Big 12. I mean, all the rest of them, even in the SEC, if Georgia somehow loses that game and gets their third loss, but, I mean, the thing that Georgia will have going for it is all their losses are against teams that are still going to be ranked in the top 25.
Right.
So I still think that as long as we win tonight, I think that'll still give us a clear path into the playoffs. But if we face off against Texas A&M and then we beat them, that's going to be their fourth loss, so they're going to be out. Texas, if we play them, we beat them again or they beat us, I think both of us will still be in. But yeah, the Big 12. I mean, it's a more, again, they're going to be 3-loss teams, and with their strength of schedule, it's not going to be the same. I think the Big 10, though. I mean, I think it's going to be it is. It's already locked in as Ohio State and Oregon, right? I'm pretty sure
because Penn State lost to
Ohio State. And then Oregon didn't play Penn State. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're locked in. So both of those should be in. Penn State's going to be in because, I mean, they're not going to – well, they shouldn't lose. They got Purdue as their last game, who's the –
and then Ohio State's got Michigan?
Ohio State's got Michigan. So if Michigan rises up and beats them, yeah, I mean, that could be the biggest factor with that one. So, anyway, it's just all crazy. Well, let's go ahead and get into our locks of the week for this week.
All right.
Bernie sent his in via carrier pigeon. He is going to go with what he thinks is the oddest line of the weekend. When we originally picked this, Clemson was favored by 2.5 points against South Carolina. Yep. So Bernie was very confused by that, as we all are, and he is going to go with South Carolina to beat Clemson, and he's going to take that 2.5 points and hope his parents don't get upset with him about that and all of his Clemson-loving family.
I got to shout out to cousin Kate. You need to use your little Orphan Annie decoder pin for this cipher scramble. You ready for the message, Kate? Do not. That's 2 words. Tell his family he picked against Clemson. And Clemson, as you know, he spells the South Carolina way with the P after the M.
Yep.
All right. So that's not the real message, but that's the decoded message. So hopefully he won't get in trouble. But now that game's +3. I say we give it to him. You know, it's getting near Christmas, and he's about to be ostracized from his family.
That's fine. Let's do it. So
he's probably losing a bunch of money on the golf course anyways.
Yep. So, and for mine, I was going to the Missouri-Arkansas game. That game, I just found out that's going to be played in pretty much a blizzard, so it seems. But I still think that I would hope that Missouri would be able to win the game, but I just haven't had as much faith in them. Sam Pittman's birthday was on Thanksgiving, so I think he's going to take that, and they're bowl eligible now, so he's going to roll with that, and I think that Arkansas is going to beat Missouri this weekend in Columbia, much to my chagrin. And again, my daughter's not very happy with me for that pick. But hey, I'm gonna roll with Arkansas. They're getting 3 points is what I had. So, how about you, Cord?
Well, I am glad you asked because I am picking the only team in the country that puts their IQs on their helmets. University of Oregon over either UW. I think it's 18.5 points right now.
Gotcha.
So,
all right.
That's what I'm going with. I'm not very confident in what UW can do, but I do know that Dan Lanning's got a bunch of cheat codes. I think he's got Connor Stallion somewhere on his staff, and they plan for those scenarios to make the line and put their hobnail boots onto the Big Ten and trying to prove something.
Gotcha. All right. Well, go ahead and get out there and put in your parlay so you can go ahead and choose against us or with us. I mean, hey, or do both. Just go ahead and hedge your bets. So anyway.
After last week, good luck. Well, that's not bad. 1 week of being like Stanford Steve. He's like that every week. No offense.
Yeah. No offense taken, I'm sure. All right, well, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this week. Sorry we're out so late, but again, we tried to get it out early and just hey.
Do we get paid for this one or just the last one that didn't take?
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I will. We'll see when those royalty checks come in because we need it to buy you a new phone, so that your phone can actually work while you're in the car.
My phone is just fine, thank you.
iPhone 8.0.
That's an upgrade too.
Yeah, I know. That's the scary part. All right. Well, if you stuck with us this long, we appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe. So, other than that, go Dawgs.
Yeah. It's going to be a busy day today.
Busy day. All right. Later.
All right. See ya.